1941D, the first flight of the orbital Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower. Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Welcome to how to delete the default cube in Blender. Today we're gonna learn how to delete the default cube in Blender. The first step to deleting the default cube in Blender is to install the latest version of Blender. You can find that by googling latest version of Blender. If I lost you along the way, don't worry, this stream will be recorded. Once you have the latest version of Blender installed, find the shortcut to your installation and run Blender. Once Blender is open, it'll show you a scene that looks like this. If you don't see this scene, then you didn't install Blender. You probably installed something else. In that case, it's probably time to stop and try again at a later time. Since Blender already comes with a cube, all we have to do is delete it. In order to delete the cube, you just click on it like you would click on anything else on your computer, and then right click to open up a menu and go to the bottom and press delete. As you can see, if you hover, it shows a little bit of description, so you can make sure that you're clicking the delete button. And just like that, you've deleted the default cube. Was it worth it? I don't know. The scene's really lonely now. I kinda miss it. Maybe we could make another cube to delete. How did the cube get there? Anyway, it just was there. Well, I happen to know how to make a cube so that you can delete it. The first step to making a cube is to install the latest version of Blender. If it didn't work out the first time, now's a good time to try again. And if you made it this far, you probably don't have a cube anymore to delete, which is kind of disappointing. But you can make another cube to delete it again. In fact, you could do that all day. You could create cubes and delete them for hours on end. I should probably mention, it's totally fine to click any button. Like literally any button. Who even cares what it does? I don't even know what most of them do, not gonna lie. A fun game that you can play though is get into like a rhythm of clicking, like every second, just click, 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 and then just move your mouse around where there's buttons, kind of like a game, kind of like Poppy and Bubble Wrap, and you just click buttons. If one of them does something, cool. Ray tracing. Whoa, the screen got brighter. It's kind of like an adventure or a rabbit hole. Each button. What does this mean? I don't know. Maybe I should turn that off. It could make my stream lag. Because I already know what ray tracing is. That's that cool thing they put in games these days. What is this? Grease pencil. There's so many words I don't know. In general, a good way to deal with words you don't know is if you don't know it, don't use it or change the setting. But I mean, it really doesn't matter if you click a bunch of random buttons in a project with no cubes in it. Because if there was cubes, you might be torturing them by pressing all those buttons. But since we deleted it, there's no cube to torture. So it's a safe time to just click all kinds of buttons. Most importantly, you can click probably any button in that sidebar, and your computer will not explode. I repeat, it will not explode. You will not delete System32 from clicking any button in that sidebar. But of course, if that does end up happening, you can't hold me liable for that. But still, I miss a cube. I want to delete it again. I mean, if I turn off the Blender window to restart it, it's gonna mess up my stream. But I know that I can click this button, and this is basically as if I restarted Blender for me. So just pretend I clicked the X and restarted Blender. And what you can do is just click the X and restart Blender. Just reopen it, and you'll have the cube again. And just in case you forgot, in order to delete the default cube in Blender, you have to install Blender, and then open it, and you'll be met with this scene. At which point, you can click on the cube like you'd click on anything else on your computer, and then right click to open up a menu. At the very bottom of that menu, there will be a button called Delete, and if you hover over it, it has a description that appears so you can make sure you're clicking the right button. So then you just click the button, and it performs the deletion operation on the cube. And now once again, you have deleted the default cube in Blender. If you made it this far, you'll probably maybe notice that all that clicking in your sidebar you did in the previous project didn't save to be in this project. So if you want, you could do more clicking, like a clean slate, or you could not. But if you want to delete a cube again, you'll probably have to close Blender and then open it again. And for me, I'm doing it from this menu, which simulates closing and opening Blender because I'm streaming, and it would mess up my stream to do that. But this is just the same as clicking the X in the corner and then running Blender again. You'll be met with this scene. This is probably a good time to try and install Blender if it didn't work the first time, or the second time. Now, if you made it this far, you're probably eager to delete the default cube in Blender. To delete the default cube in Blender, simply click on the cube, just like you would click on anything else in your computer, and then right-click anywhere in the scene view, and it will open up a menu. At the bottom of that menu is the delete button. If you hover over it, you can see a description. You can read that to make sure that you're going to click the right button. Simply click the button and it will delete the cube. And now you've done it. You've deleted the default cube in Blender. If you're having trouble finding the button, it's probably best to close Blender and reopen it. To do that, you can click the red X in the corner, and then click the icon to open Blender. For me, since I'm streaming, if I do that, it'll mess up my stream. But there's an option here I can use that simulates restarting Blender. When you restart Blender, you'll be met with this scene. Once again. At which point, you can do the same thing you did before, with a brand new cube. Click the cube, just like you would click anything else on your computer. Then right-click anywhere in the scene view. A menu will pop up that has a lot of options. At the bottom of the menu is the delete button. If you hover over it, you'll see a description. You can read this description to make sure you're going to click the right button. Simply click the button to perform the delete operation. Congratulations, you successfully deleted the default cube in Blender. If you haven't made it this far yet, this is probably a good time to go and make sure you have the right Blender installation. If you're not sure what the right Blender installation is, it should be the latest version. To find the latest version of Blender, search on Google, latest version of Blender. Once you have Blender installed, find the icon that opens the program and click it. Once you click it and Blender opens, you should be met with this scene. If you haven't made it this far, or had trouble installing Blender, don't worry, this stream will be recorded. If you didn't install Blender, then don't worry, there'll be an opportunity to try again. If you installed something that wasn't Blender, and made your computer unusable, this is probably a good opportunity to take a break and try again later. If you have made it this far, you're probably eager to delete the default cube. To delete the default cube in Blender, simply click on the cube in the Blender window like you would click anything else on your machine. Right-click anywhere in the scene view to open up a menu. At the bottom of the menu will be the delete button. You can hover over it to see the description of the button to make sure that you're clicking the right one. Simply click this button and the delete operation will be performed on the cube. Congratulations, you've deleted the default cube in Blender. If you haven't made it this far, this is a good opportunity to try installing Blender again. If you click the delete button on your cube and it didn't delete, this is probably a good opportunity to take a break and try again later. Alright, it's probably time to move on to something a little more complicated. As you can see, I've turned on an add-on called Screencast Keys. I'm going to move it over so that it's easier to see as we work on our cube. Let me just make sure that it works right. I see the font's way too small. I'm going to make that bigger. That should be much easier to read. If you're unable to understand the mouse icon, this is a left click, this is a right click, and this is a middle mouse button click. Then there will be a feed of operations, which will consist of buttons I pressed on my keyboard. As you can see, you can rotate around the scene by holding down the middle mouse button and moving your mouse. This is pretty cool because spinning is fun. Once you're nice and dizzy, we can try creating a new cube to delete. Doing it this way means we won't have to close Blender and reopen it again, just to get a cube to delete. This is going to increase the efficiency of our workflow exponentially. Pretty soon, we'll be default cube deleting machines. Most importantly, this workflow is scalable. You could delete tens, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions even, of default cubes with very minimal operations. The only limit is your imagination or your computer exploding. To create a cube, we have to access the creation menu. The creation menu allows us to add all kinds of fun things to our scene. Among them are things called primitives. You should write that down. It's going to be on the test. Primitives are just simple shapes. A cube is a primitive. What they'll be called in the menu though is mesh. This is to differentiate it from the other types of objects we can add to our scene, such as curves or surfaces. We don't need to worry about those though. Not yet. Right now, all we need to worry about is the very top option that says mesh and has a triangle. If you hover over this, it'll expand into a drop-down, where we'll see a lot of primitive options. These are fun, because each of these is a primitive shape that we can add to our scene and delete. And yes, we can even delete a monkey. Pretty cool, right? If you haven't made it this far, this is probably a good time to try and reinstall Blender. If your attempt at reinstalling Blender didn't work out, this is probably a good time to take a break and try again later. If you've successfully installed Blender and made it this far, you probably see a cube option. If you hover over this option, a description will appear. You can read that description to know that you're clicking the right primitive. This one says, construct a cube mesh that consists of 6 square faces. I suppose that's another name for a cube. I much prefer cube. If you click this button, a cube will be created in your scene. And just like that, you have a new cube to delete. If you remember from before, to delete the default cube in Blender, simply click the cube in the scene, and then right-click anywhere in the window. A menu will appear. At the bottom of the menu will be the delete button. You can hover over this button to make sure that it's the right one by reading the description that shows. Simply click this button to delete your cube. And just like that, you've deleted the default cube in Blender. Congratulations! If you were having trouble installing Blender before, this is probably a good opportunity to try again. If you installed something on your PC that made it unusable, this is probably a good opportunity to take a break and try again later. If you weren't able to complete any previous steps, rest assured, this stream will be recorded. If you would like to delete the default cube again, you have 2 options now. You can close the Blender window and open it again to be met with the default scene, which includes a cube built in. Or you could press Shift A to open up the creation menu. In the creation menu, there's a lot of options, and even a search bar. The top option, called Mesh, with a triangle next to it, is the option that we're looking for. If you hover over it, a drop-down menu will appear. It contains a lot of options, such as plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, torus, grid, and monkey. Now, if you've successfully followed along thus far, you've probably deleted about 4 or 5 cubes. You're definitely a pro at deleting cubes. You probably want to move on to bigger fish. You can really click any of these options, because they're all meshes. Which means they work the same as a cube, but they're different shape, which is fun. So far we've deleted cubes, but what if we fast-tracked and moved right on to monkey? If you hover over monkey, you'll see a description. If you read this description, you'll know that the monkey's name is Suzanne. It's just polite to call it by its name since we know it now. So, from now on, monkey is going to be known as Suzanne. This will be on the test. It's recommended to write that down. And you can be sure that every monkey that appears on this stream from here on out will be named Suzanne. Although, it might not be quite recognizable if it's even vaguely monkey-like. Its name will be Suzanne. Once you've accepted this reality into your life, you can click the monkey button to create Suzanne. And just like that, we have created Suzanne. You don't need to talk to Suzanne, but if you feel compelled to, I wouldn't judge. As you can see, this is much more complicated a shape than a cube. A cube consisting of 6 faces, and Suzanne the monkey consisting of 500 faces. But Suzanne's really only one face, staring into our soul as we speak. Which is why I wouldn't judge if you had any confessions to make to Suzanne. If you need to catch up, this is probably an opportunity to do so. If you installed something that wasn't Blender and rendered your computer unusable, this is probably a good time to take a break and try again later. If you've made it this far, congratulations! You can now make friends in Blender, your first friend being Suzanne. May the joyous expression of Suzanne's face pierce into the depths of your soul. Most importantly, you should feel proud for making it this far. Now that you've formed an emotional attachment to Suzanne, let's delete her. To delete Suzanne is just the same as deleting the cube, which, if you followed along to this point successfully, and your computer wasn't rendered unusable, then you do it just the same as any other way we've deleted the cube previously, which would be closing the Blender window and reopening Blender, or clicking on Suzanne in the scene view, and then right-clicking anywhere in the scene view, which will open up a menu. At the bottom of this menu is the delete button. If you hover over the delete button, a description will appear, which you can read to make sure that you're clicking the right button. Simply click the button to perform the delete operation on Suzanne. If you thought deleting the cube was lonely before, imagine how I feel about deleting Suzanne. If you just can't take the loneliness anymore, rest assured, we can create another Suzanne. We can create another Suzanne the same way as creating the previous cubes, using the creation menu, and the first Suzanne, which we also use the creation menu for. To create another Suzanne, we press Shift A, which you can see in the bottom right corner. If you didn't hear correctly, it was Shift A. When you press that, a menu will appear. It sure has a lot of options. But no worries. The only option that we're worried about is the top one. It's called Mesh, and it has a triangle next to it. If you hover over this option, a drop-down will appear. It contains even more options. And if you hover over any of those options, a description will appear. You can read the description to know more about the mesh that you're creating before you create it, such as a UV sphere. If we click this button, it will construct a spherical mesh with quad faces, except for triangle faces at the top and bottom. We can get more information about the mesh that we're going to create before we create it. Right now, we're going to create another Suzanne, because we are lonely. In the menu though, it's called Monkey, and if you remember before, anytime a monkey appears on our screen, its name is Suzanne. And if you hover over Monkey, you can be reminded of this by reading the description, which reads, construct a Suzanne mesh. Simply clicking this button will create a new Suzanne. And there we go, once again. We have the joyous expression of Suzanne back in our life. Congratulations! You successfully created, deleted, and recreated Suzanne. If you're still having trouble installing Blender, it's probably best to take a break and try again later. If you installed something that wasn't Blender and rendered your computer unusable, this is probably a good opportunity to take a break and try again later. This is probably a good time for a recap. First, we installed Blender. Then we opened it. We created the default scene of Blender for the first time and located the cube. Then we successfully deleted the cube. After that, we closed Blender and reopened it so that we could get a new cube, and then deleted that again, just for good measure. Later, we found out how to create a cube without closing and reopening Blender. We were able to delete the default cube, create a new cube, and delete that one again, all without closing Blender. Knowing how to do this is going to set us up for success in our cube deleting career. Then we got a taste of what's to come by beating Suzanne the monkey. Then we deleted our new friend and created her again. All in all, it was a pretty good cube deleting journey. With bonus, Suzanne. If you were having trouble installing Blender, this is probably a good time to take a break and try again later. If you installed something that wasn't Blender, and it rendered your computer unusable, this is probably a good time to take a break and try again later. If you got lost along the way and weren't able to catch up, rest assured, this stream will be recorded. Some review of the test questions. A cube is a primitive, and anytime you see a monkey, its name is Suzanne. Your homework is to go and delete 25 default cubes. This will solidify your ranking as a default cube deleting pro. I hope that you're now confident in your ability to delete cubes in Blender. Tune in next time to learn more about things you can do in Blender.